And with us right now, we've got Bryce Johnson. Bryce, you are the founder and CEO of Go Big Creative. And one thing I'm going to ask our listener to do right now is go to your website, Go Big Creative, find a link to your Instagram so you can see visually, because what we're talking about, Bryce, is what you do is very visual work. And I hope that someone will pull up your Instagram so they can see exactly what we're talking about. So when we're talking about social media and a lot of the content that you create, they'll see firsthand so they can appreciate what we're talking about. But Bryce, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh man, it's great to be here for sure.
So share a little bit about your background. Obviously you weren't shooting cover. I mean, just absolute design for Instagram. Exactly the work you do. This is big time Instagrammer. When they bring in the team, they're bringing you in. So yeah. I can tell you work with some very successful Instagram influencers and very successful brands. You know exactly what to deliver. But how did you get into this work? What's your origin story?
Well, so it goes back actually. So I started in Los Angeles as a music guy. My first job, in my 20s, was working at this recording studio that did commercials. That was their specialty. When I went there, I was thinking, I'm going to record bands and do the whole thing. But I ended up at this studio that did commercials, and they did the big budget stuff. This is in the 90s. So Nike, Coca-Cola, big brands, big budgets. And so the actual film directors would be in there. And even though I was kind of the music guy doing the music mixing, I was super interested. And I talked to these guys in the back of the room during the film mix. And I think that sparked my interest in the visual side of it. But anyways, I kept composing for a while. High def cameras became a thing in the early 2000s. I bought the first one available, and my business just shifted from audio to visual, and it's kind of made that transition. And
what's your first memory of Instagram?
Let's see. What is my first memory? It was probably just so in addition to my Go Big Creative, I'm just kind of a freelance fashion photographer. And it was just Instagram. Well, actually, okay, my first memory of it was this, the resolution's too small. I don't even like this. Little did I know. There's a little bit of snot about it. But yeah, I learned really quick. It doesn't matter if the resolution's low. It's just an awesome platform. It's so visual, obviously.
Yeah. Well, so before that, what was the big platform that I think a lot of visual designers were using? Because you talked about low resolution. And I'm trying to think of what else. My sister does a lot of great photography.
You know what? Google Plus was where a lot of photographers were.
Oh my gosh, no kidding.
Oh, Google Plus. Yeah, that lasted for not very long.
Yeah, right. Yep. It was hardly like we knew the Google Plus. Okay, so so you're doing fashion photography. So at what point did you start marketing yourself as as someone who is very, very Instagram savvy?
It just kind of morphed into that way. I mean, I just started using it slowly and just realized what a visual platform. I guess what it was is just working with clients, and they all began to gravitate there. And just because I could do the visuals, and I was hiring some other people who were really good at it as well. And as a team, we started doing that. And it just was an organic thing. It just kind of grew. I think what's changed in the last few years is now we use it more as an ad platform, where early on, it was definitely more of just be there for the organic reach of it. But you still get some organic reach, but it's definitely the ad platform that is where we really go for it now. But
so how does someone, can you give us maybe 3 tips for better photography for Instagram or social? I'm just, again, they say, picture's worth 1,000 words. And when I look at the art that you create, first off, clearly you're working with some of the most unattractive people on the planet. I'm joking. Every single person on here is oh, come on. This is, this person is just a flawless looking human.
Yes. There is that. Let's see, what's some good tips? Obviously, It depends on what you're shooting with, but the thing is, like, your typical iPhone shoots great. Just use light to your advantage. Think about where the sun's at if you're outside. Yeah, you know, it's about framing as well. Like, think about what's behind the subject. And then there, you know, use the Instagram filters, you know, judiciously, don't overdo it. But if you've got there is something to be said for an image that just stands out. It's not just bland and kind of boring colors, you know.
Yeah.
So use that a bit for Instagram. You know, I tell clients when they're using those things, you know, pick your favorite filter and kind of stick with it. It gives your feed a look, and it's all very cohesive. So that's important too.
What are your favorite filters?
I don't actually use the Instagram one, so I couldn't tell you offhand. But I use, you know, Lightroom and Photoshop. But Lightroom's kind of my go-to, and I've created my own presets in there for these things. Yeah.
Yeah. For someone, I actually don't even know what Lightroom is. I
gotcha.
I've been a Photoshop user since the mid '90s. I'm not an expert, but I use it for small, simple jobs. I've been doing that forever. You know, back in the day, you know, of course, you know, 90s style Photoshop work. You know. I'm not a guru by any means, but is Lightroom?
So Lightroom's
really great.
Yeah, it's part of the Adobe suite. A lot of times it'll come in a package with Lightroom with their subscription, but it's more Photoshop's like the, you know, layers and like the big editing animal. Lightroom's it keeps your library, and you can do a lot of color work with it, and in fact more and more. So I generally do most of my work just in Lightroom. Yeah,
so you're doing the photography, and then in your experience, you know, how much post-production work do you end up doing for, you know, again, if it's a brand that wants to represent themselves very well, not everything, I guess the idea, right, is to just get a really great, clean photo. I guess here, let me ask the question this way.
Yeah.
How much of the photograph is when you snap the picture, and how much of it is, you know, the kind of the care afterwards?
Yeah, that's a good question. So it's really you know, we do, like, you know, look at the Instagram feed, it's very stylized, you know, a lot of these things, and these are like, you know, it's kind of our showcase feed, obviously, so it's our most kind of stylized work for the most part, but like, and you know, it's kind of a trend these days. It used to be, you know, to me 10 years ago, there's a lot of skin retouching. I don't think there's any skin retouching on any of those shots on ours. It's more about just capturing, you know, if the light looks really good on somebody's face, it kind of hides a lot of wrinkles. So it's more about just lighting things just right. But as far as, you know, that look and the editing, here's the deal. Like, obviously, like with our clients, there's, and this is part of what we do too. There's the high end, very stylized, like this is your brand. It looks great. It's, you know, you may hire a model for some shots, but what we find that works is like, but you don't want that to be the only thing you do. Like we still have, when we're doing like a set of media for the companies we work with, we of course we actually call it our toolkit. We have our lifestyle, and we do a lot of video as well. So we may do a lifestyle video where it showcases the brand. We may hire models for these things. That we'll do user-generated content where it's like we go out and tell them, get your users using it, cell phones, no touch-up, this is just raw, real. And it's that mix between the just gorgeous work that really shows your brand, how, you know, in your best light, you know, what your brand is about. And then it's this mix of user-generated content, influencer content, which may be a higher end, but it's what the influencer sends out. It's not us with our look. And it may be PR, any PR that the brand has. Could be just a simple, like, this is why our product's good. So it's like it's this mix of things. So it's not just, I think brands, if you just use this super high end look, that misses the boat. It just doesn't work anymore. Maybe at one time it did, but it's really all these pieces of the puzzle, using it at different parts of the funnel. So some, like, we find that maybe their lifestyle, really beautiful thing works well with cold traffic, but maybe then we retarget that with the user-generated content. So it's just finding the right mix, and that it's all about the mix. So,
for someone who wants to grow their visual design business, maybe they're like on Upwork, or they've, you know, Fiverr or something that, right? They're just, you know, they're just kind of at the early stages of that, and they want to grow their body of work. They want to get better and better clients. Like any tips for them?
Let's see. I guess the best tip, it's probably been said before, but just shoot a lot. I mean, a lot. Like every day you should be out shooting. If you don't have clients filling up your schedule every day, then you should be out just shooting on your own. And there's plenty of people. You can go to brands and say, hey, I'd like to just do some content for you. Obviously start with smaller brands, a local brand.
Yeah.
But honestly, and I have a lot of photographers approach me and just say, hey, can I just come shoot some content for some of the brands you work with? In addition to Go Big Creative, I own a few e-commerce brands. So, and I have always people asking that. So that's a great way. Just offer it for free. Once you have that body of work, people will start paying for it if you're good. So, but that's where to start.
I think it's a great way. Like go, find some local brands. Just say, listen, I'm just starting to build up my body of work. But if you end up doing okay work for them, that becomes a testimonial. Like that becomes like now, like when you're like, well, who have you worked for? And like, well, here's my portfolio of everybody. Right. And they start to see what your work is. And then they recognize, okay, wow, that's a great photo shoot at the muffler shop. I wouldn't have expected that. Right. And you just become known for that. I agree. Sometimes we let our egos get in the way. And by the way, I need to mention this. Like, if you're a business owner, don't do it the other way around. Right. Don't do that. Like, you know what I'm talking about. Don't ask artists or creatives to work for free for the exposure. You're not paying for their 2 hours of time. You're paying for their years and years of doing what they do. Right. I just thought I'd throw that out there.
That's good. That's good to be said.
Yeah. So Bryce, tell me, who hires you? Like, how do they hire you? Like, what kind of budget would they have? And like, what's kind of the outcome that you'd help them provide?
Gotcha. So we're targeted mainly, obviously, with our Instagram feed. We work with fashion and lifestyle brands a lot. But even though we position ourselves there, we honestly work with a ton of service companies as well. I think they see the aesthetic and they, if it's a plumbing company, they go, I want my plumbing company to look this cool, which is legit. It really works. I mean, we can go into, just a typical service brand that wouldn't really think that visuals are so important. And we can do this cool video about the plumbers being the superheroes of the plumbing world or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
But there's always creative ways to do it. Budget-wise, it's really, we've worked, so when we work with a client, we typically look at what they're kind of where they're at in their journey. Like, do these guys, are they very profitable? Are they starting out? And we typically will try to package something that works for their budget. So in other words, if it's a local restaurant with one location, they're usually have pretty thin margins. Yeah. So if we are going to work for them, we just go, hey, we'll start off, we'll just run, we'll shoot a little video, we'll run one ad for you, and we'll test it this month, and we'll charge just a small, maybe a $500 fee to kind of get it running. And if we can grow them, we'll up our fee and we'll up what we do for them if we start with a larger brand with a bigger margin. So honestly, we look at where they're at, and sometimes maybe we're just not a good fit for them, because visuals is a lot of work, so it doesn't always work out. But you don't have to we don't have to go to a small local company and go, okay, you need a $15,000 big production. It's like, okay, let's go in, we'll shoot some of your plates with happy customers for 30 minutes and super simple. Maybe you'll even shoot it with your cell phone. We'll tell you how, and you'll send us that. We've done that before. We're like, I don't think we can go shoot it, but here's what you need to do. We'll help you start an ad with this. So if you're creative, I always tell people, don't be afraid of the budget. Don't be afraid that you don't have enough money to have visuals, because if you own a cell phone, you can do it, right?
Yeah. So. And you know what? I mean, today, the internet is it's a visual medium. And like it or not, we're judged based on how we present ourselves, and every day it's kind of like, we live in a swipe left, swipe right world. And, if your branding just looks lousy, you've got horrible photography, it sucks. But unfortunately, consumers are just really fickle. And they're going to make some pretty sweeping judgments or assumptions unfairly and pretty quickly. Bryce, you do beautiful work. Your website, again, gobigcreative.com. Anything else you'd recommend people go and check you out on?
No, that's great. Yeah, Go Big Creative, and our Instagram is @GoBigCreative. So that's where to find us. Yeah.
You're in beautiful Park City, Utah. So very, very picturesque. That's a great place to go travel to, go spend the day with Bryce. And you'll certainly have I would imagine you do some great work for corporate, corporate clients, that sort of thing. Not necessarily even fashion oriented, right?
Right. No, we do. Yeah. A huge mix of clients. Yeah.
Fantastic. All right, Bryce Johnson. Again, the website is gobigcreative.com. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, man. It's been a pleasure.